This story is titled, My Fiancé's Office Daddy Sent Her a Text Saying, Hope your clueless fiancé doesn't know. I blew up their lives. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting here, but there we go. LOL, buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride with some big fat revenge. I, 29 male, met my fiancée, Iris, 28 female, at a friend's house party 5 years ago. I was the guy hanging by the snack table, classic, when this stunning brunette walked up and asked if I was guarding the chips or just socially awkward. Both, obviously. We hit it off instantly, exchanged numbers that night, and soon later we started dating. And man, everything was perfect. Fast forward 4 years, and I put a ring on it. Those years were some of the best of my life, not gonna lie. We had inside jokes that would make us laugh until we couldn't breathe, like the time we got lost hiking and ended up in some random farmer's field. And Iris convinced him we were nature photographers to avoid getting in trouble. Or our Sunday morning ritual, where we'd make these insane pancake creations and rate each other's efforts. Her blueberry chocolate monstrosity somehow always won. We were a solid team. I'd spend hours debugging her laptop when it crashed right before important deadlines. When she mentioned wanting to try yoga, but felt self-conscious, I converted our spare room into a mini studio so she could practice at home first. I planned a surprise weekend trip to meet her favorite author at a book signing 3 states away, driving through the night so she wouldn't miss work. I remembered how she mentioned once, just once, that her mom used to make this specific Puerto Rican dish on her birthday. So I spent weeks secretly learning to cook it, calling her mom for tips and everything. My most prized possession through all this has been my orange tabby, Dexter. This magnificent bastard has been with me for 8 years, since he was a tiny furball that could fit in my palm. He became Iris's buddy when she came into the picture. Iris and I moved into a decent apartment downtown, merged our friend groups, and started planning for the future. House in the suburbs, kids, the whole American dream package. We'd stay up late sometimes, just talking about what we'd name our kids or what color we'd paint our future living room. We even had a joint savings account for our honeymoon in Italy that we'd been dumping money into for over a year. Almost 15,000 sitting there waiting for us to blow it on pasta and wine. Something weirded me out. Dexter started giving Iris the cold shoulder about 6 months ago. This formerly affectionate cat suddenly started avoiding her like she was covered in dog smell. I figured maybe she accidentally stepped on his tail, but animals just know when someone's character changes. Turns out cats make better judges of character than love-struck idiots. And boy, had Iris change. It started about 8 months after our engagement. It was happening gradually that I almost didn't notice. First came the work emergencies that kept her at the office till 9 or 10 p.m., happening maybe once a week, then twice, then becoming almost routine. When I offered to bring her dinner during these late nights, she'd get weirdly defensive. The security desk is a hassle, or we're in a classified meeting room. Then the team-building workshops that mysteriously fell on weekends. Her phone became permanently attached to her hand, and she'd jump like she'd been shocked whenever it buzzed. If I walked behind her while she was texting, she'd flip that phone over faster than you could say, suspicious activity. I'm not stupid. These were red flags the size of Texas. But when you're in love, your brain does explain away the obvious. I kept telling myself, she's just working hard for that promotion. Or, her boss is demanding. Or, she's ambitious and that's one of the reasons I love her. Then came the appearance changes. New haircut, more makeup, fancier clothes for work, lingerie I never saw her wear. And suddenly she needed regular nights out with coworkers I'd never met and wasn't invited to meet. And suddenly she needed regular girls' nights with coworkers I'd never met and wasn't invited to meet. Once I suggested dropping her off to save on the Uber, and you'd think I'd offered to commit a felony the way she reacted. Another time I saw a credit card charge for a restaurant on a night she claimed to be at a team dinner paid for by the company. When I casually mentioned it, she had a whole story ready about how her boss's card was declined, so she covered it and would be reimbursed. 2 months later, I checked. No reimbursement ever came. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about that Tuesday in April when everything changed. Iris was in the shower, singing some Taylor Swift song completely off-key, not her talent, when her phone lit up on the coffee table. The notification preview just happened to pop up where I could see it. The contact name was Office Daddy, and the message read, Hope your clueless fiancé doesn't get suspicious. See you tonight. Office Daddy? Clueless fiancé? I felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. My heart started racing, and for a second I thought I might throw up, but I somehow kept my cool. I didn't confront her when she got out of the shower. Didn't mention the text. Didn't give her a chance to spin some story or gaslight me into thinking I was paranoid. I just kissed her goodbye when she left for work and told her I'd probably be asleep when she got home since I had an early meeting. That night, while she was out with Office Daddy, I wanted to see it all for myself. And after a lot of thinking, I remembered something crucial. When we first started dating, Iris used the same email and password for everything. She eventually got better about security, but what if some of those old accounts were still active? It was worth a shot. I opened my laptop and tried her old login info. I typed in her old email address, the one she used for everything when we first started dating. For the password, I tried the same one she used back then. Her childhood dog's name plus her birth year. Simple, predictable, exactly the kind of password she'd never change because it's too hard to remember new ones. And bingo. First try, I was in. I clicked on her DMs, scrolling through the recent ones. Nothing unusual, just friends, her sister, some coworkers. But then I saw it. Office Daddy. And what I found made my blood run cold. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, except the train was my relationship, and the wreck was happening right in front of me. There were hundreds of DMs between her and Daddy Steve. Real subtle, right? Going back almost 8 months. Pictures I don't even want to describe. Messages making fun of me. Plans for their future together. In one particularly charming exchange, she wrote, "Felix is so focused on our wedding plans. He has no idea I'm planning my exit. He's sweet, but so easy to manipulate." They had inside jokes about me, about how I never questioned her stories. They were literally bonding over deceiving me. Nothing brings couples together like shared hobbies, I guess. I kept scrolling and found a conversation from just 3 weeks earlier about timing their plan. She was letting me book wedding venues while planning her exit strategy, calling me sweet but easy to manipulate. Steve called her smart and sexy, saying once her promotion came through next month, she could give notice and tell me whatever story she wanted. She'd already started moving important stuff to her parents' place, and I hadn't even noticed her winter clothes were gone. They planned to drain our joint accounts after the promotion he was arranging, leaving me with the wedding deposits, probably right after I added her to my investment account as a surprise anniversary gift. I closed the laptop, feeling punched in the chest. 5 years with someone who talked about me like I was some mark in a long con. Someone moving her things out while planning a wedding with me. Someone who saw my trust as a weakness to exploit. Easy to manipulate? Me? The guy who once orchestrated a 3-week practical joke involving my college roommate's car? Oh, honey, you have no idea what manipulation looks like. But you're about to find out. I could confront her, create a scene, throw her stuff out the window, and be done with it. Or I could take my time and make sure both Iris and Office Daddy got exactly what they deserved. Dexter looked up at me and meowed, as if to say, destroy them. Smart cat. That's exactly what I planned to do. I spent that whole night planning while Iris slept next to me, totally clueless that I knew what she was up to. She was knocked out cold, probably tired from her work activities with Office Daddy, snoring like nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I was wide awake. I'm not normally a vengeful dude. But this was different. This wasn't just cheating. This was months of lying, manipulation, and straight-up disrespect. The messages I saw weren't just about the affair. They were making fun of me, planning how to leave me once she got what she wanted. That kind of betrayal doesn't deserve forgiveness. It deserves some big fat revenge. First thing the next morning, I called in sick to work, told my boss I had food poisoning. As soon as Iris left for the office, I got to work on phase 1 of my plan, protecting my assets. See, Iris and I had several joint accounts. The biggest was our honeymoon fund. Then there was our emergency fund, about 8,000. I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank and started moving money. Not all at once because I'm not an amateur, but in chunks that wouldn't raise suspicion. I left some cash in the joint accounts so she wouldn't notice anything weird. By the end of the week, I had secured about 20,000 of my own money that she couldn't touch. Next step was gathering intel. While Iris was at work, I went through everything in our apartment, methodically searching every drawer, closet, and hiding spot. Found receipts for jewelry I never gave her. A $600 necklace, $900 earrings, even a bracelet worth over $1,000. I discovered hotel bookings for work conferences that I knew for a fact were romantic getaways. Luxury suites at hotels just an hour outside the city, always booked for Friday through Sunday. But the real goldmine came when I remembered her old laptop. She'd gotten a new one for work about a year ago, but kept the old one as a backup. It was collecting dust in our storage closet. I fired it up, and because Iris was lazy with tech security, it didn't even have a password. Perfect. The familiar desktop appeared with all her old files still intact, digital breadcrumbs leading straight to her betrayal. I navigated through her folders, knowing I was about to uncover the full extent of her deception. Her email was still logged in, and holy crap, the stuff I found made my stomach turn. Not only were there explicit exchanges between her and Steve going back nearly a year, but there were discussions about company finances that seemed off as hell. References to using the project budget for personal expenses, a weekend spa retreat coded as team building, shopping sprees disguised as client gifts, even a down payment on a car masked as transportation costs. There were dozens of mentions of coding certain purchases as business expenses, Steve explaining exactly how to categorize their romantic dinners and hotel stays so nobody would question the charges. It was obvious that Steve wasn't just sleeping with my fiancée, he was using company money to fund their affair. They weren't just having an affair, they were stealing, putting both their careers at risk for the thrill of their illicit relationship. While digging through all this, I realized I needed an inside man, someone who could give me insight into what was happening at their company in real time, someone with access to information I couldn't get on my own. And I knew exactly who to call. My old buddy, Chris. Chris was my buddy from college, who happened to work at the same company as Iris and Steve. Not in the same department, but close enough to be useful. He worked in IT, with access to company servers and email logs. So, this seemed like the perfect time to reconnect. I dialed his number. "Dude, long time no talk," he said when he picked up my call. "What's going on?" I got straight to the point. "Chris, I need your help with something. It's about Iris and her boss." After I told him about it, he wasn't at all surprised. In fact, he revealed that Steve had a long-established reputation around the office for having affairs with employees before Iris. These affairs had been going on for years, but HR could never prove anything because the women always covered for him, either out of fear for their jobs or hopes for advancement. Plus, Steve was too valuable to the company since he brought in big clients, making management reluctant to investigate too deeply. Chris painted a picture of a predatory boss who used his position of power to seduce subordinates, creating a toxic work environment that everyone knew about but nobody addressed. Chris also told me that Steve's wife, Susan, had no idea about her husband's behavior. She was apparently this super sweet woman who organized charity events and volunteered at animal shelters, the complete opposite of her scumbag husband. I felt sorry for this woman I'd never met. She was another victim in this mess. That's when I decided my revenge needed to be nuclear. Not just for me, but for everyone. I would bring the whole house of cards crashing down. Chris eagerly agreed to be my eyes and ears at the company without tipping them off, mentioning that he'd love to see Steve go down after making his life hell for 3 years. Perfect for me. Now I had an inside man. For the next couple of weeks, I played the role of clueless Felix to perfection. I didn't change my behavior at all. When Iris said she had to work late, I'd say, "No problem, babe. I'll keep dinner warm." When she mentioned another business trip, I'd respond with, "That's great. I'm so proud of your dedication." With every lie she told, I gave her more rope to hang herself. And man, did she take it. She got bolder, sloppier, more confident that I suspected nothing. Meanwhile, I was setting up the perfect trap. I installed tracking apps on her phone while she slept. Again, heavy sleeper, Bosch, an easy target. And she sleeps like she auditioned for a corpse role. I forwarded copies of all her emails to a secret account I created. I documented everything. Dates, times, screenshots, recordings. But gathering evidence was just step one. I needed to make Steve incriminate himself even further. And for that, I had a brilliant idea. Iris's phone had fingerprint unlock, and she was, as I mentioned, a ridiculously heavy sleeper. So one night, after she passed out, I carefully took her hand and pressed her thumb to her phone. Unlocked. I opened her messages with Steve and started typing. "Hey, I'm worried Felix might be getting suspicious about the money. He asked about the necklace you got me." Steve replied almost immediately, "Don't worry about it. He won't figure anything out." He boasted that the necklace wasn't even bought with his money, but with the Martinez project budget, a client account he controlled completely. His arrogance was astounding. When I pushed further about the safety of using company money like that, suggesting someone might notice the unusual expenses, he bragged that he'd been doing it for years and knew how to code expenses so nobody would ask questions. He even detailed his method, spreading costs across multiple budget lines, creating fake vendor accounts, falsifying receipts, a complete confession of systematic fraud. I took screenshots of everything, careful to delete the conversation from her phone afterward. Bingo. I took screenshots of everything, careful to delete the conversation from her phone afterward. The next morning, Chris texted me, "Dude, you won't believe this. Steve just approved a $5,000 client entertainment expense with zero documentation. The finance team is asking questions, but he's shutting them down. The pieces were falling into place. Steve wasn't just cheating with my fiancée, he was committing fraud. And Iris wasn't just cheating on me, she was benefiting from the fraud. Both fireable offenses, possibly even criminal ones. I spent that weekend creating a detailed document tracking all the suspicious expenses I could find, cross-referencing them with Iris's new jewelry, weekend trips, and spa days. Chris helped by quietly gathering information from the company's finance department. By Sunday night, I had everything I needed to destroy them both. But I still had one more card to play, contacting Steve's wife. She deserved to know what kind of man she was married to. As I sat in our living room, petting Dexter and finalizing my revenge plan, Iris walked in from another work meeting. She kissed me on the cheek and asked what I was up to. I told her I was thinking about the future, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Ah, that's sweet," she replied, completely missing the dangerous edge in my voice. "I'm going to take a shower." As she walked away, Dexter hissed at her, something he'd been doing more and more lately. He knew what was coming, and so did I. The storm was about to hit, and neither Iris nor Office Daddy Steve had any idea they were standing directly in its path. Monday morning came around, and I was ready to execute the next phase of my plan. Instead of immediately dropping all the evidence I had collected, which was already enough to nuke both their careers, I forwarded all of it to Chris, who was becoming increasingly valuable as my inside man. Chris was all in. Turns out Steve had made his work life hell for years, passed him over for promotions, took credit for his ideas, and generally treated him like garbage. This was Chris's chance for payback too. The next day, Chris called me during his lunch break with shocking news. Steve had been called into a meeting with the finance team that morning for a random audit of expense reports, and his name had come up. Apparently, he looked like he was going to pass out. When I asked if they had found anything, Chris said not yet, but they were digging. Even more interesting was that Steve had immediately gone to HR afterward and tried to disclose his relationship with Iris, seemingly trying to get ahead of the scandal. But HR already knew something was up because 3 people had complained about favoritism in their department. This was better than I could have hoped for. They were unraveling on their own, paranoid that they were about to be caught. And the best part? I hadn't even made my first official move yet. It was time to accelerate things. I decided to contact Steve's wife, Susan. Finding her wasn't hard. She had a public Instagram account dedicated to her charity work. I created a new email address and crafted a careful message. "Dear Susan, I apologize for contacting you this way, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. Your husband Steve has been having an affair with his employee Iris Brown for at least 8 months. I have attached proof, screenshots of conversations between them. I am not doing this to hurt you, but because I believe you deserve honesty. A concerned person. I attached just enough screenshots to prove the affair, but held back the financial fraud evidence for now. One nuclear bomb at a time." 2 days later, Chris texted me with explosive news. "Dude, you won't believe. Susan's shown up at the office." She walked straight to Steve's office during a meeting, slapped him in front of everyone, and screamed that she knew everything. Security had to escort her out, while Steve locked himself in his office for the rest of the day. Iris had called in sick. I smiled as I read this. Phase 1 complete. Now it was time for Phase 2, exposing the financial fraud. I compiled a comprehensive document detailing all the misappropriated funds I could track. Hotel stays coded as business trips, jewelry purchased as client gifts, dinners labeled as team events when it was just the 2 of them. In total, I estimated they had defrauded the company of at least $75,000 over the past year. With Chris's help, I created an anonymous email account and sent everything to the company's CFO, the entire finance team, the board of directors, and for good measure, every employee in the company, including Iris. Subject line: fraud, embezzlement, and misconduct, the Steve Parker file. The email went out at 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday, right when everyone would be settling in at their desks with their morning coffee. I imagined the chaos that was about to unfold and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. While all this was happening, Dexter sat in my lap, purring contentedly, as if approving of my actions. That evening, Iris didn't come home. My phone remained silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. But Chris kept me updated on the nuclear meltdown happening at their office. Steve had been escorted out by security, with them taking his laptop and phone. Iris was being questioned by HR and the legal team. The CFO had called an emergency all-hands meeting to address the serious allegations of financial misconduct. People were even placing bets on whether the police would show up tomorrow. I slept better that night than I had in months, knowing that karma was finally catching up to both of them. The storm I had carefully crafted was now raging at full force, and I was safely watching from a distance. The next morning, I woke up to an email notification. It was from our landlord, confirming that I had requested to have Iris's name removed from our lease. I had already secured a new apartment across town, paid the security deposit, and arranged for movers to come at the end of the week. Iris and Steve thought they were so clever, planning their future while destroying mine. But they never stopped to consider one crucial fact. I wasn't the clueless fiancé they thought I was. And now, they were learning that lesson the hard way. The next 48 hours were absolute chaos. My phone blew up with notifications, mostly from Iris, a few from mutual friends asking what the hell was going on, and even one from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Steve. I ignored all of them. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Chris kept me updated on the office apocalypse. Apparently, after my email blast went out, the company went into full crisis mode. The CFO and legal team sequestered themselves in the conference room with stacks of financial reports. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. Just a typical Tuesday at the office, right? According to Chris, Steve was done. They found way more financial irregularities than even what I sent them. Looks like he'd been pulling this crap for years, not just with Iris. Shocking. The guy who cheated on his wife and stole company money wasn't just doing it this one time. What are the odds? As for Iris, she was having a total meltdown. She tried to play the victim at first, claimed she had no idea about the financial stuff, that Steve manipulated her, blah blah blah. But then HR showed her the screenshots. She ran to the bathroom crying and hadn't come back. Around noon, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Steve, sounding strained and desperate. I played dumb, asking who it was, and when he identified himself as Iris's boss, I called him Office Daddy. After a long pause, he tried to claim there had been a huge misunderstanding. I cut him off and told him to cut the crap since I'd seen everything, tracked all the money, and knew exactly what they'd been doing. And now so did his wife and entire company. Steve shifted to threatening mode, saying I didn't understand what I'd done, and that he had connections to make my life very difficult. I actually laughed out loud. Yeah, the guy about to be fired and possibly arrested for embezzlement, whose wife was leaving him, and reputation was destroyed, was going to make my life difficult. Sure thing, buddy. I told him to go ahead and try, then hung up and blocked his number. I went back to packing my stuff, while Dexter watched from the top of the bookshelf. Later that afternoon, Chris called again with breaking news. The police had shown up and were in with the CFO and legal team. Steve got escorted out by the cops. Now he's probably looking for a new girlfriend in prison. Iris was still at the office. HR told her not to leave town. Always a great sign when you're hoping to avoid criminal charges. She kept asking about me, wondering if I was the one who sent all the evidence. Chris played dumb, saying he was just watching the show like everyone else. Office entertainment had never been so juicy. By evening, I had most of my stuff packed. I had already changed all my passwords, redirected my mail, and notified my bank of potential fraudulent activity. I was cutting every tie, burning every bridge. Around 8 p.m., Iris was finally coming home to face the music. I was sitting on the couch, Dexter in my lap, looking completely calm as she stumbled through the door. She looked like garbage puffy red eyes, mascara smudging her face. It's amazing how ugly crying can make even the most attractive person look like they just went 10 rounds with a makeup blender and lost. When she asked what I did, I calmly told her I didn't do anything. She and Steve did this to themselves. She whined about how they were saying she and Steve stole money, committed fraud, and might face charges. I simply asked if she did those things, and she launched into the classic, I didn't know it was a legal defense. I stared at her, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably before she started backpedaling. I didn't. Felix, everything is falling apart. I might go to jail. I've already been suspended. They took my laptop and phone. I need your help. Sure, after cheating on me for months, plotting to leave me, and participating in fraud, she was now expecting me to ride to her rescue. The audacity was kinda hilarious. She finally noticed the packed boxes and empty shelves asking if I was leaving. I confirmed, yep, lease is now in your name only. Rent's due on the 1st, but you probably knew that. I stood up. I'll be back tomorrow with movers for the rest of my stuff. You should probably call a lawyer. Always good to be prepared for those pesky criminal investigations. You can't just leave me to deal with this alone, she shrieked, grabbing my arm as I tried to walk past her. I removed her hand firmly, but without aggression, explaining that actually I could and I was. I reminded her that for months, she'd lied to my face while planning her exit strategy with her married boyfriend. So congrats. She was free now, just not in the way she planned. Funny how life works out sometimes. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Steve's wife froze their accounts. I can't even access my own money right now because of the investigation. I have nothing. I shrugged. Not my problem. Maybe try your parents? Or one of the friends you've been lying to about working late? I'm sure someone will take pity on you. After all, everyone loves helping out a friend who's about to be charged as an accessory to fraud. As I grabbed my overnight bag and Dexter's carrier, she launched into a new tactic. I'll tell everyone you abused me. I'll ruin your reputation. You think you've won, but I'll destroy you. I turned back with a smile. Go ahead. Tell everyone how your fiancé caught you cheating and reported actual crimes to the authorities. I'm sure that'll win you tons of sympathy. I pulled out my phone. Also, I'm recording this conversation, so thanks for the threat. That'll be useful for the restraining order I'll be filing tomorrow. Nothing says I'm innocent quite like threatening to falsely accuse your ex of abuse. Her face crumpled as she realized she had no leverage. Then she started sobbing uncontrollably. I felt nothing watching her break down. No satisfaction, no pity, just a hollow sense of closure. Goodbye, Iris. I hope you'll get the help you need. I walked out the door, not looking back. I drove to my temporary Airbnb until my new apartment was ready. The storm I had unleashed was still raging, but I was already miles away, safe and dry, while Iris and Steve drowned in the consequences of their actions. And it felt damn good. A couple of weeks after, a lot has happened. First off, I'm fully settled into my new place. It's a bit smaller than our old apartment, but it's all mine. Dexter adjusted immediately. Seemed happier, actually. Probably because he no longer has to share space with Iris, lol. Chris has been keeping me updated on the office drama, which apparently hasn't died down at all. The company launched a full-scale investigation into Steve's department, and they're finding financial irregularities going back at least 3 years. Turns out Office Daddy had been running his little scam long before Iris came into the picture, and he'd been screwing other coworkers before Iris became his new toy. The CFO is apparently on the warpath with a forensic accounting team going through everything. Steve is completely screwed. Criminal charges, civil lawsuits, the works. What a shame. I'm absolutely heartbroken for him. Really. The motherfucker made his bed. As for Iris, she's suspended without pay pending investigation. They haven't decided whether to fire her outright, but her career is toast either way. Well, sucks to suck, Iris. Remember the show Iris made earlier? Her threats? Well, I found them funny, though. I was never afraid of her. But why not add some salt to the injury when I can? That's what I actually did. So the day after I moved out, I filed for a restraining order against Iris. Her threats about ruining my reputation were enough to convince the judge, especially with the recording I had. She can't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace, and can't contact me through any means. If she violates it, she goes to jail. Simple as that. I also immediately broke the lease on our old apartment and made sure Iris's name was the only one on the new agreement, which means Iris either had to cough up the full rent herself or get evicted. Either way, not my problem anymore. As for our wedding plans, those were obviously canceled. Most vendors gave me partial refunds. The venue manager actually gave me a full refund because that bitch doesn't deserve to keep your money. His words, not mine, but I wasn't about to argue with such flawless logic. Our joint honeymoon fund is now my solo vacation fund. I'm thinking Japan instead of Italy. Always wanted to go there, and now I don't have to compromise on the itinerary. Silver linings, right? Sometimes it takes your fiancé cheating with her boss to finally get that dream vacation. Dexter is gonna like it too. Steve's wife Susan, on the other hand, is thriving. She cleaned Steve out in the divorce filing. Got the house, the cars, everything. Turns out infidelity combined with criminal charges makes for a pretty straightforward divorce case. Who knew? Susan also reached out to thank me for everything. It's been 6 months since Iris's meltdown at my apartment building. And honestly, life has been pretty damn good. My job promoted me to senior developer, which came with a sweet pay bump. I used part of it to finally take that solo trip to Japan I'd been planning. 2 amazing weeks exploring Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. Chris has been killing it too. Remember how he always got passed over for promotions when Steve was in charge? Well, the new department head recognized his talent right away. He's now leading his own team. We still grab coffees every couple weeks. Dexter is living his best life, obviously. He's sitting on my desk right now as I type this, occasionally pawing at the screen as if to add his own commentary. Looking back on everything, I don't regret exposing them. Not for a second. There are people who think I went too far, that I should have just walked away and let karma handle it naturally. But come on, where would be the fun in that? So that's it, folks. Steve is probably making new friends in prison. Iris is learning that actions have consequences. And I'm enjoying my life with a promotion and the world's most intuitive furball. If there's one lesson I've learned from all this, it's to trust your instincts. When something feels off, it probably is. And if your cat suddenly starts avoiding your fiancé, well, you might want to pay attention. Thanks for following along with this wild ride. While I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, I have to admit I'm in a better place now than I was before. If any of you is in a similar situation, just make sure you grab evidence and secure your finances before you blow up their spot. Edit 1. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up? Thanks for the awards, y'all. For those asking if I ever heard from Iris again. Spoiler alert, I did. And it was pathetic. I'll drop an update soon. Edit 2. I just booked my solo trip to Japan. Dexter is coming, of course. Iris thought she was gonna scam me out of my honeymoon fund? Nah, babe. I'll be eating Wagyu and living my best life. Thanks for the support, Reddit.